ngizobingelela ubuholi obukhona. I'm not going to isolate the people who have been told ukuthi leadership here, Youth League is here, leadership of the region is here, our representatives in the National Parliament are here, and in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature, especially Zad. Kodwa okusemqoka ukuthi ngibingelele the young people who are here, because this is a youth event. Roar, young lions, roar! Roar, young lions, roar! Roar, young lions, roar! Umzabalazo wethu kahle kahle umzabalazo of young people, because all the generations that fight in the struggle fight for future generations. They don't fight for themselves. That's number one. Number two, in every war, and we are in a war here in South Africa, in every war, whether it's in Ukraine or wherever, when we say the country is at war, who do we send there? Young people. Because those are the people who are the custodians of the country, and those are the people who fight for their future. Now, I've been asked lana ukuthi ngizokwenza lecture. So, makwenza lecture ke kuba quiet angithi. Asike sizame nje sizenze izifundisa noma singayazi ukuthi lecture yini. Kodwa ke this is not just a lecture, asikho university lana ngithi. This is a political lecture. That is very, very important to understand that what is a political lecture. Because today we are marking the birthday of one of the leading revolutionaries in South Africa and in Africa. But because we are revolutionaries, everything is political. Even a birthday is political, even a wedding is political, even a funeral is political, because we are political animals. So it's important to therefore recognize that this is a political lecture. Because Sikale so late, I'm going to jump some of the places kule lecture yam. But on Monday, convener, I will send you the copy of this lecture so that those who want to read it in their own time can do so. And let me start there. There's a difference between giving a political speech and a political lecture. Because in a political speech, you are allowed, sometimes to mix the facts a little bit and exaggerate them. But when it is a lecture, it is a document that will be read by future generations and criticized intellectually at a later stage. So you have to stick to the facts and stick to the truth. And one of the foremost revolutionaries in Africa, Amilcar Cabral, said, "We must tell no lies and claim no easy victories." So in a political lecture, we are going to be giving you some of the facts and dispelling some of the lies and the myths, particularly about President Zuma, whose birthday brings us here. I have been asked in this lecture to touch on 4 topics, but I will explain that I'm going to dwell more on the last 2. Firstly, I was asked to deal with President Zuma's period in exile, and then President Zuma's period in office, and then his contribution to youth issues, such as free education and youth small development, and the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe Party. That last part is a part that I hope you're going to learn some new facts because that is something I know very, very well in very intimate details. There are few people who were lucky enough to be part of that journey of the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe. It was me and a few other people for obvious reasons, because it was an underground operation. So I'm going to share some of those issues. Why was Umkhonto weSizwe formed? What is the purpose of this movement? And what are the hopes of our president in respect of that? So I'll be very short on the issue of his life in exile, because I was not in exile. But we know that one of the key important factors we should know about former President Zuma is that he spent 10 years on Robben Island, and then he spent 14 years in exile. Now think about that. Some of the people here are not even 24 years old. But here's somebody who spent 24 years either in prison or in exile. So that, the myth we are told now today is about the so-called 9 wasted years of President Zuma in office. And I will dispel, one of the myths I'm going to dispel is that. What all of us should really worry about are those 24 wasted years of former President Zuma. Imagine if those 24 years could be added to his life so that he can lead us going forward. So it is the enemy that wasted 24 years, not former President Zuma who wasted years. And that is a very important perspective that we need to carry with us as we analyze the life of this revolutionary. Now, also, we must remember that President Zuma in 1990, when people came back from exile, was only 48 years old. But already, being 48 years, he had moved within the organization, the ANC, to levels that had not been precedented by anybody. Think about some of the facts. He was a member of the National Executive Committee in exile. And when the movement came back in this country, I remember we were part of the organizing committee of the first consultative conference, which was held on South African soil in 1990. And also here in Durban, the ANC held its first conference after coming back from exile in July 1991. We were here at what is now the University of KZN on the Westville campus. Now, in that conference, just to give you a picture, there were the people who were there included Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Chris Hani, Thabo Mbeki, Andrew Mlangeni, actually all the Rivonia trialists, Alfred Nzo, some of the most formidable leaders of this movement. But the importance of that conference for the story of President Zuma is that at that conference, he was elected among all of those people that I've mentioned and many other giants of our struggle. But President Zuma was elected to be among the top 5 leaders of the ANC, because there he was elected as the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. Now that means at that point already, of all these people I'm mentioning, he was their leader, he was our leader, and being number 5 in the hierarchy of the ANC. You will see the importance of that later when I talk about the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe. So that alone tells you the role that he had played when he was in exile. He led the organization in Swaziland, led the organization in Mozambique during the most difficult times of the Nkobati Accord. And later he had to be moved to headquarters in Lusaka. The second topic that I was asked to talk about is about his time in office. And I want to deal with this in a little bit more detail. Now, the first 5 years of that term, of his 2 terms, was of course, it ended in 2014, from 2009. We all know the story of Polokwane. And after Polokwane, there was a period in 2008 where there had to be an interim president, Motlanthe. But after the election in 2009, Msholozi got into office. Now, the first 5 years of that term saw many serious changes in our country. And what then happened is that President Zuma was uprooted from office. But before that happened, because that's also relevant to the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe, and I hope the young people who are here in particular are taking mental notes, and I hope that some of these things will be recorded so that we can refer to them when we talk about our organization. You know, I want to say that it should have been clear to everyone at that time that what we are dealing with here is a person who is very, very special, very, very gifted, and a leader who has no equal in this country. Just think about it. In a country like this, with a sophisticated economy, with all these people who think that they know it all, here is somebody who has never seen the door of a school being able to take over the leadership of such a country and making strides not only in South Africa, but on the continent as a whole. Here is somebody who took over at a time when the economy was facing a global crisis, but managed to get that economy to be resilient. One of the myths that are told about President Zuma is that, which is true, when he took over, our economy was growing at levels of about 4 or 5%. And during his term, that economy was growing at levels of about 3.5% to 4%. Now, the people who don't know economics will tell you that it means that our economy had gone down. But what they forget to tell you is that in 2008, there was a major global crisis across the whole world, which collapsed all economies. But under President Zuma, the South African economy managed to resist and grow at levels almost close to pre that crisis. And I think we should give him a round of applause. Now, that is just one of the issues that you can highlight during that term. But specifically because I'm addressing young people, I want to pick on some of the issues that he dealt with in the Youth Growth Summit, where he highlighted the role of the youth entrepreneurship, and I'm sure all of us here will know somebody, even if we don't know them closely, who got into business, who got into opportunities, who got into university, who got into skills development during the term of former President Zuma. All those people today will tell you that since his departure, the position of black people, and particularly young people in business, has become precarious. And it is worse because you would have expected the opposite to be true, because one of the people who benefited from the empowerment programs of former President Zuma is none other than the current president. He himself is a beneficiary of that empowerment, but he is unable to benefit or beneficiate young people. Now, one of the most important achievements of President Zuma must be around the issue of education. I can tell you, I was a youth and activist myself. I was a member of COSAS, and I was a campaigner for educational struggles almost 50 years ago. I'm sure most of the people here were not even born. And if you had said to us in those days that we would be able to address the president of the country, not only address the president of the country, but have the president intervening on our behalf, we would have laughed at such a statement. But we know what happened in 2015 and 2016 during the Fees Must Fall campaign, that it was President Zuma himself who intervened and made sure that the seeds of free education are planted. And I think that is one of the reasons that his enemies were worried. We heard recently from the person who was the Minister of Education that time, President Zuma. When these things were happening, he took some of the credit. But he revealed recently in an interview that actually the President Zuma called him to his office. He didn't even know why he was being called. And he was told, you have to meet the demands of the students. And that is what happened. If I can tell you some of those achievements, we can be here all night. Again, a big highlight was the successful hosting by this country of the 2010 World Cup, a moment that is unforgivable and unforgettable, where the first ball was kicked by the president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, and Malala Msholozi himself. And as young people, you must also remember that one of the highest achievements of that era was the building of 2 new universities in this country, one in the Northern Cape and another one in Mpumalanga. There is no president in this country who can claim to have built even 1 new university, let alone 2. And I want to say that, on a very serious note, that Msholozi, his own lack of formal education, although I will show you later that he's more educated than all of us in reality, but his lack of formal education is actually what drove him to make sure that the black child and the African child in this country must get a chance at education. Because there's no bigger liberator. There's nothing that has liberated all of us who come from very poor backgrounds than education. I now move to the topic that I really want to address. The role played by former President Zuma in the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe. And I've said that this is a topic that's very close to my heart, because I was lucky to be a witness to some of those events. And I will take you into some of the steps that were taken. But let me say this. The birth of Umkhonto Wesizwe happened in front of all of us. But at that moment, maybe some of us did not understand what was going on. I don't know how many people remember when Msholozi walked on the 16th of December 2022, when he walked inside the ANC conference in Nazareth, and he was warmly welcomed by the delegates. Do you remember that? That moment, when you tell the story of Umkhonto Wesizwe, you must tell people to go back to that moment. It is probably one of the most significant moments. I know this because on the 15th, I was with him at his house in Forest Town when he was going to register. That day, we were planning to lodge the court case against Cyril Ramaphosa, the private prosecution. You remember that, Anit? And we said, he said, I'm going to register after signing the papers. We had already served the papers at Ramaphosa's house. So I said to him, okay, now we're going to announce to the public that we have lodged the papers against Ramaphosa. Now Msholozi joked about the situation. He said, Faragate, it's in calling your register. Maseng register, I release again. They won't even allow me to register if they know that we are moving against their president. And indeed, they went to register, and after registration, we made the announcement. But the most important day was the 16th of December, 2022. Now picture this. Here is a man whom, as I'm telling you now, probably has got the biggest accolades in the African National Congress. But he made a decision that he's going to go to that conference as a delegate from his branch, Ward 4 in Nkandla. This is somebody who would have been entitled to sit there in the podium with all the big shots of the ANC. A former president of the ANC, a former deputy secretary general of the ANC, a former national chair of the ANC, a former deputy president of the ANC. If it was some of us who would have walked like this to be carried up to the stage, but Namalala being Namalala decided, no, I'm going to go there as an ordinary member of the ANC and sit there with the people as a delegate. That was a very important historical moment. It has never happened in the history of the ANC that a former president decides to walk into a conference of the ANC as an ordinary member. But he knew what he was doing. He said, I want to go there and I want to address that conference. I want to talk to them about the problems in the ANC, but I don't want to do it from the stage. I want to do it as one of the people. And what happened? He raised his hand from where he was sitting. He raised his hand for all those days of that conference. It was a 5-day conference. They never recognized him. So you will see, the national chair of the ANC at that time was Gwede Mantashe. He never recognized the hand of Msholozi. You would have seen some of the delegates were pointing, azange recognize. Now, in a way, I always say, mhlambe, we must thank Gwede Mantashe, because if he had recognized Msholozi, ngaba ukumkhoto namhlanje. So what happened, comrades, is that he raised his complaint. He spoke in one of the commissions, and even when he spoke in the commission, that report was stifled. So it is very clear that there was a decision by Ramaphosa and his people that he must not be recognized. Remember, this is about 2 or 3 weeks after the Phala scandal had been debated in Parliament. This is a few weeks after Ramaphosa had made certain statements that were very troublesome to the former president. And it was about a year or so after Ramaphosa had said that the ANC was #1 in corruption in South Africa. And nobody in the ANC was prepared to challenge that statement, because they knew that Ramaphosa had been bought by the Stellenbosch mafia. Anyway, that conference, again, was the first conference where the conference did not finish. It was finished in January on Zoom. Now imagine an ANC conference finished on Zoom. So clearly, there were many underhand tactics. On the 16th of January of the following year, 2023, we were now going to court for the Ramaphosa case. And Msholozi, after having come back from the conference, he went back to Johannesburg. It was at that point, I think, because that conference for him was a turning point. After going to court on that day, we went back to his house, and he said he's now had time to think about what has happened to the organization, how it has now been hijacked for the second time. And he said to me, because our relationship is both legal and political, one day we'll write a book about how that relationship was formed. So I know when he's talking to me as his lawyer, and I know when he's talking to me as a comrade. And we finished those things of court, and he now was talking as a comrade. And he said, I have decided that I'm going to write a letter, an open letter to the ANC, and I'm going to detail everything that I was going to say if they had recognized my hand. I'm going to write it down, and it will be distributed to all the members of the ANC. He said, let's do a draft of that letter. He gave me, as he normally does, the points of what he was thinking. Because make no mistake, when Msholozi asks you to do a job like that, it's not you who's doing that thing. He'll tell you blow by blow all the points that he needs to be made. And then until I get when I was on this one, so that's what happened. So we started drafting that letter, open letter to the ANC. And he said to me, and I've never asked him this, he said, okay, when you finish the letter, I'm going to take it, there's somebody in KZN who's going to also look at it, and then we'll release it. I still don't know today who that person is. Now, if you've worked in the underground, you don't ask questions. If umuntu says there is somebody I'm going to consult, you can't say mbani lo. Because if he wanted to tell you the name, he'll give you the name. Or when the time comes for you to know the name, you'll know the name. So that's the nature of our relationship. So I've never asked him, but I think now I'm ready to ask him. I've got 3 suspects of who that person was that he was going to consult here. And I'm sure it's one of them. Anyway, it moved until about, I think we went to court in Maritzburg, around about March, April. And I said to him, okay, the letter is ready now. As Limes Yete, I'm going to give you the letter and it's going to be released. Or you'll go and consult your Muntu of KZN and then say released. Now, if you know Msholos, he says, Baba Sokuluma Ngalendo after court. So again, he was separating the court from the political. After court, he said, how? After I've taken my best English to write this letter, and I look at it, this man, who is a very wise strategist, said, no, let's wait. There's a new plan. Hey. What is the new plan now? So, to cut a long story short, the new plan was that there is nothing more that can be saved from this ANC. It was clear from the months that have moved from the December conference to about April that the ANC is gone. So that's when the plan came. So this was the plan. That by June, we're going to register a political party. Now, comrades, because you know that this thing has already happened, you don't know the impact. So me, I was shocked. I said, hey, I'm too young for this one. To keep a secret like this is too much. Zuma is leaving the ANC. So I said that to him. You want me to keep this secret that you are leaving the ANC? Wahleka. Wathi cha baba. I'm not leaving the ANC. Heaven. Uthini lo baba manje? One side uthi form an organization, ngapha uthi is not leaving the ANC. I will tell you a little bit about that later. It's one of the most misunderstood political statements. When Sholozi says, I will die as a member of the ANC, at the same time, I'm going to vote for Umkhonto weSizwe. That is pure genius. I will explain to you now. Okay. Sizoyibona lento leyo ukuthi umuntu kahle kahle uthini. Right. So in June, the party was formed quietly. I think at that stage, maybe only 4 or 5 people knew about the formation of the party. So we did all the legalities, the party was formed and registered. Then, the actual registration happened in September. All that time, nobody knows what is happening. The only person that we had to share this with was Ace Mahashul. Why? In July 2023, Ace Mahashule, we were told he was going to launch a political party. So we called him to my office to say, no, don't do that. Something is coming. I can't say what is that something. No, my launch party. No, we were with a comrade called McDonald Nseki. So, akayizwa lo muntu lento. Said, okay, fine, we are going to take you. We drove him all the way from Johannesburg in my car. We drove him to Maritzburg to go and meet with Ubaba so that he can hear for himself. Wafika in Maritzburg, got a briefing. Kwathiwa ungayilonshi iphathi ngoba this is the plan. What was I postpone? I think he was going to launch on the 31st of July. Our postponing ngempela. Sometime in August, I was driving to work. Ngizwa ku radio kuthiwa nangu comrade Makashule is launching a party in Soweto. So I'm sure he will tell a story why he decided to do that. But he was the one person who was told the story for the first time before anyone else. Then in August, before the registration of the party, the president asked me to convene a meeting of the leaders of progressive organizations. And we did that. Now this was a risk. Again, if you know how the underground works, the more people you involve, the more the story is likely to leak. So that risk had to be taken. We briefed the presidents of these organizations in very great detail. I still have the document of the presentation we did to them. And we explained, Guti, one of the key issues is now to unite Abantu Abamnyama. We are telling you, comrades, as the presidents and leaders of your political parties, that the strategy is going to be to go into this election njengendlu emnyama. It was agreed in that meeting. I'll give you the details one day when I write a book. But it was agreed in that meeting that group of people will meet once a month until December when Umkhonto Wesizwe was going to be launched. September meeting did not take place because kwabakhona a death in the family of uNxamalala. I think that meeting was going to be on the 29th of September. So that meeting eventually took place on the 3rd of October, where again we convened the leaders of these political parties. You can imagine what was happening in that room. There was the president of the UDM, there was the president of ATM, there was the president of AZAPO, there was the president of Yonalega ACT. Then there was still, you remember there was an organization, Areta. The president of that, or the convener, was there. There were representatives of the African People's Congress, APC, Gakoti. And there was the deputy president and secretary general of the EFF in that meeting. Ningazule story zamanje ezingamanga. We're going to come to them just now. They were all in that room and they were briefed thoroughly for something like 3 to 4 hours about the plan of uniting black people, and we gave them a presentation, slides, this is what is going to happen. Now, when the ANC lost the election, just to give you an example, the media was shocked. The one person who was not shocked was President Zuma. The people in that meeting will tell you how he analyzed the situation in South Africa. And we came to the conclusion that the ANC will be lucky to get up to even 42%. And our projection was that the ANC will get between 37% and maybe 42%. Now, those who know statistics will know that when the ANC added at 40%, it means Msholozi was within the margin of error. And we said to these comrades, When that happens, there are going to be 3 blocks in South Africa. One block will be the ANC itself. The other block will be the Moonshot Pact led by the DA, the right wing. And we must form a 3rd block of progressive organizations, which at that stage we call the Patriotic Front. Now, the idea was this, comrades, that when the ANC loses power, then they must be forced to negotiate with the progressive bloc in what we call in politics a voting bloc. That means that they should not be able to speak to the UDM, the EFF, MK, and so on. They should speak to us as a group so that we can use that power. And then there was agreement in general that I was asked with Carl Niehaus to go and draft a document which will have 10 minimum demands that will unite those organizations. And so things were now moving. But here's another important thing that Umsholozi's genius showed. He said before the launch of Umkhonto weSizwe, I want to see some of the key leaders, because I know people will feel threatened. They will think maybe we want to stop their organizations. And he said, I want one-on-one meetings with some of those leaders. And I went to find those people. So before the launch, he had a one-on-one meeting with Uzumbula, with ATM, Siyamazi sonke ngithi. He had a one-on-one meeting with Olomisa, Siyamazi sonke. And he had a one-on-one meeting with Julius Malema. I was there. One-on-one. Again, nami sengifana nomsholo zithi ngelinye ilanga ngisazokhuluma. But those meetings took place, and then came the very important day of the 16th. This is history, my comrade, and one day this history will be told. On the 15th of December, we sat in Hyde Park, Kwatutu, and we were now finalizing the statement that was going to be announced the following day. So I'm sure all of you saw the message. Kwathiwa kusasa kuzoba ne press conference kaMsholozi. Wayenza vele leyo press conference, made the announcement, and from that day South Africa was never the same. Now, the ANC made two very important mistakes. At first, they started by ignoring that announcement. And then it was too difficult. And they said they are going to take us to court. And that's exactly what Umsholozi was hoping for. Because when they went to court for the name of the ANC and the logo, they lost all those cases. But more importantly, those cases were used for mobilization, as you know, because there was no money. So the only campaign of Umkhonto weSizwe was going to court in Bloomberg. Our campaign again, we must thank Umbalula. Siyabonga kugwede noMbalula yebo basizile ngoba kuMkhonto weSizwe. So, and then omunye wasiza futhi uJabulani Khumalo naye wasise court kwaba ngama mobilization rallies lapho. Then another very important decision. Ngifuna nje ukunibonisa ukuthi umuntu ohlakaniphile esikhuluma ngaye. All of us were saying the manifesto launch of Umkhonto weSizwe must be here in KZN, because this is the base, angithi. What? No. A manifesto is going to be launched in Gauteng. Oh, Jane, Gauteng. and he went to launch that manifesto. You remember Orlando? That was a tactic, and as a result, after KZN, the next highest number of votes that we got in 2024 was in Gauteng. So we're dealing here with a thinker. Anyway, Africa Gama elections, Kwenzekayo. Baba surprised. And then this is where the mistake really happened. Because those organizations that had been consulted at that stage allowed the ANC to deal with them one by one. Unlike what President Zuma had said should happen. Now, we said, okay, so now we have this KZN issue. Comrade Mervyn Dex was not answering that question. I can tell you now, KwaZulu Natal is going to be ruled by Umkhonto weSizwe not in a long time. Even though they stole the votes, they were so we were still able to get 45-46%. Now, this is the important part, comrades. The reason why Msholozi formed this organization, and the reason he called it Umkhonto weSizwe, was not a mistake. Umkhonto weSizwe, this party, you must think of it in 3 different forms. There is Umkhonto weSizwe, the People's Army that was formed in 1961, that was done to defend our people when the Boers decided to close down our organizations. So Umkhonto weSizwe, the Liberation Army, is a reference point for us. Uguti, whenever the time comes, as it was said in 1961, where there are 2 choices, submit or fight, we decide to fight. And that is what happened in 2023. So you then had Umkhonto weSizwe, the political party. That's the second form of Umkhonto weSizwe. Umkhonto weSizwe, the political party. Comrades who are sitting here, they represent us in parliament. The political party, you all know what a political party does. It has to go according to the rules of parliament and point of order and all those things. So the political party has got its own restrictions, but the most important form of Umkhonto weSizwe is Umkhonto weSizwe, the people's movement. That is a different thing from Umkhonto weSizwe, the Liberation Army, and different from Umkhonto weSizwe, the political party. This is a movement of the people. And some of the people who made Umkhonto weSizwe don't even have membership cards, but they are, Umkhonto weSizwe is in their hearts. And those are the people that we must worry about. It's not the MPs. It's not those of us who are in leadership positions. It's not even the councillors that we are going to put in next year. Yes, those people are important because they carry the mandate. But the most important lesson you must take from this lecture is that we have to protect Umkhonto weSizwe, the people's movement, with everything in our heart. Every organization that has black people, we can, unions, what have you, we cannot have an organization that has black people where there's no MK person in there. So if there's a leadership contest in any structure, your job is to make sure, even if it's one, if election lako, we're going to do a burial society. It's fine. It means Ubabum kids and Ubabuntu. One of them must be Mkonto. There's not a single structure that must not have MK. That is what we call a people's movement. Now, one of the things, I'm going to give you some quotations from Umsholuz. Some people say that this question of unity is just, some tool. Zuma is just, giving us this thing of unity. He just thought about it in 2023. No. If you follow properly what his speech is, this is what President Zuma said in 2017 when he was addressing the National House of Traditional Leaders. He said, we need to accept the reality that those who are in parliament, where laws are made, particularly the black parties, should unite because we need a 2/3 majority to effect changes to the constitution. So when former President Zuma was calling for a 2/3 majority now in 2024, he had said the same thing in 2017. It's just that, as they say, they were not listening. And he says, we can't fight over nothing and not deal with the real issues and waste time instead of creating the legal institutions to address the problems we have of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. Now, 6 years later, this is what you find in the Constitution of Umkhonto weSizwe. It says, in their journey of colonial conquest, the white colonial settlers never encountered black people as a united opposition against colonialism. Whilst the liberation movement attempted to unite the forces of resistance from 1912, the period we're in has stratified and continues to divide black political resistance to neo-colonialism. Umkhonto weSizwe Party is therefore a political movement that seeks to unite all the anti-colonial, anti-apartheid, and anti-imperialist progressive forces to continue and complete the unfinished fight for total liberation. So, what I'm saying is that the statement he made in 2017 has now been captured in the Umkhonto weSizwe Constitution. So if you want to summarize what MK is all about, there are two legs of Umkhonto weSizwe. It is unity in action and total liberation. Unity in action, total liberation, unity in action, total liberation. Those two legs are the most important pillars of Umkhonto weSizwe. Because without unity in action, and we are not talking about unity that you write in pieces of paper, we talk about unity in action. And the total liberation of our people means beyond the political liberation, beyond economic liberation, beyond social liberation, beyond cultural, beyond spatial, beyond ideological, total as in total. The word total means exactly that. In every form possible, we need our liberation in total, and we need it now. And he says, the Constitution also says, decolonization must lie at the ideological center of the new struggle for the total liberation of our country, our continent, and the world. Now, some of the people here who are university students will unpack decolonization for us. This is what President Zuma said on the, I want to say there are 3 documents, if you want to understand this organization, that you must read. One is the announcement that was made on the 16th of December 2023. The second one is the document that is known as the People's Mandate. And the third one is the current constitution of MK. Can you show it up? That document, very important. Because there they capture all the things that I'm saying. Now, another myth and lie that is told about President Zuma is that he wanted to collapse those organizations that I told you about. I'm sure you've heard that story being said by certain leaders, isn't it? That we wanted to collapse their organization. That statement can only be made by somebody who doesn't know how to think. Because if you are talking about a patriotic front, what does that mean? It means it's all the organizations coming together, and it's not one organization, not a merger. It's a front of all the organizations. And therefore, it is a lie, comrades. You must tell all these people who spread that lie to say that President Zuma wanted to collapse their organizations. And here is the proof of that. He said this on 16 December 2023, and I want you to listen carefully. And you can tell me if these are the words of someone who wanted to collapse any organization. This is what he said. I call on all South Africans to join me in taking the important step and vote for the MK party and any other progressive party. Says what? So he was not saying people must only vote for MK. He was saying vote for MK and any other progressive party, including those parties who say that we wanted them to be collapsed. And he says, any other progressive party which seeks total liberation and the return of our land to its rightful owners, the African people. Listen to what he says. The task ahead requires young and older leaders alike to pull in the same direction. No single organization can pull us out of the present crisis. We require the same spirit of unity which saw us defeating the monster of apartheid. Are those the words of somebody who wanted to collapse other organizations? No. He said no single organization, not even the MK party, can get us out of this crisis. We need unity of our people. And he said the following, which covers some of the things I've said. He said, in the past few months, that was now in December, I have held several meetings with leaders of our people across the spectrum, including about 10 registered progressive political parties, with the aim of fostering the much-needed unity of the historically oppressed and dispossessed in South Africa. We are also discussing the formation of a patriotic front and a voting bloc after the people's victory in 2024. To pursue a minimum consensus program of no more than 10 points of agreement to get us out of the present crisis. The single aim is to steer the ship of total liberation from colonization back on course by uniting Africans across the country, the African continent, and the diaspora. There can never be reconciliation without socio-economic justice and equality. Again, I ask you, comrades, are those the words of someone who wanted to destroy other organizations? So these lies have been told many, many times. And we must, as foot soldiers of Umkhonto weSizwe, dispel all these lies wherever we meet them. And we must preach the idea of unity. You know what Msholos is asking of us, I think it was the president of the Youth League who said this. He wants us to be leaders and activists like him. Have you ever seen him angry with anybody? Have you ever seen him insulting other leaders? But that is a person who is focused, always listening even to some of us who don't know anything. And he will listen to, you can say to him, Baba, we need to rush now. If there are people who want to talk to him, he's going to say, and listen to those people. A true man of the people. And that is why people love Msholozi. It's not because he has done anything, it is because they see themselves in him. And all leaders who are sitting here must aspire to be like Msholozi. Because if we can even be half of what he is to our people and love this country, even half of the love that he has, then we will be free in no time. Now, the values of the MK party are in the Constitution, but I want to highlight one that really epitomizes what Msholozi is about. And it is the value of unity. And as I say, he asks of us something which is very difficult. Some of us were youth leaders, in our time. So if somebody, you go for them, and who's the boss here? But Msholozi says no. You must never insult other leaders. You must never insult other organizations. You must, even if they insult you, you must not retaliate. Hey, in Zuma, but we have to do it. Minaga is the chair of the disciplinary committee. I have to discipline people who break that thing. So no matter back, so this is what it says about unity, comrades. Very important. This is the last quotation I'm going to give you. It says, MKP does not preach unity for the sake of unity, nor does it believe in paper unity only captured in formal agreements or declarations. Unity must first and foremost be aimed at concerted and concrete actions, aimed at changing the status quo for the benefit of all the people by any means necessary. While the people must enjoy total freedom of association, the progressive forces must work tirelessly to build unity among those who continue to suffer under the yoke of imperialism, colonialism, apartheid, monopoly capital, and their offshoots. The MKP must never engage in any activity that undermines the unity of progressive forces, even against the most extreme forms of provocation. This requires maximum discipline, and indeed it does. So if we can follow those prescripts, then we are halfway of being like Msholozi, and we will follow the values of this organization, which are Ubuntu, unity, Pan-Africanism, democratic centralism, mandates, organic forms of representation, discipline, and knowledgeability and class consciousness. All those will require a lecture on their own. But what is important is that is what unites us and what unites all the millions of people who believe in this organization. Now, I need to end by quoting from the disciplinary code, because as the chair of the disciplinary committee, I have to say this. When we talk discipline in MK, we're not talking discipline like in school or at work. We're talking about what our constitution says. The disciplinary code must be seen as the disciplinary code must be seen as a weapon for revolutionary change. So, comrades, I want you to go and digest some of these things. What do we mean when we say the disciplinary code must be seen as a weapon for revolutionary change? It is because we are fighting a war in South Africa, a war against poverty, a war against sell-out structures such as the GNU. And we need soldiers. You are the soldiers. It is not the leadership. it is not the president who's going to change this country. It is the people of South Africa. And it is each one of you, those of you who have the discipline to sit here and try to understand this organization, those who have the discipline to read the literature of the organization, and to be able tomorrow to give a lecture like this in your own settings. And for that, you don't need to have to even speak English. You should be able just to be able to understand the organization. So that ma abantu bekhuluma amanga about umsholozi or about the organization, you are able to say, oh, this is what this organization is about. It is not about that. If umuntu ufuna ukulwela izikhundla, you must be able to say to them, this is not what this organization is about. It's not about mina. It's about the people of this country. And it is about liberating our people who have been under the yoke of imperialism for almost 400 years, who have fought so many wars. And the weapon of unity, I want to end on that note, is not a small thing, Makaban. Unity of our people is the biggest weapon we can have in this fight we are facing now. Amapunu, they fought in a war against the English. The Afrikaners, what are called the Afrikaners today, they were called Boers. They fought a bitter war from 1898 to 1902. About 30,000 British soldiers were killed in that war. 20,000 Boers were killed. And even some of our people died in that war. That is how much they hated each other, those people. But they decided in 1902, ukuthi silwelane bantu bakithi. Let us unite. Unity. In 1902, the Afrikaners and the English signed a treaty called the Treaty of Vereeniging. And they decided ukuthi izikhali bazibeka phansi. And for the next 6 years, they were crafting a unity position. In 1909, they formed something called the Union of South Africa, with the two Boer republics of Orange Free State and Transvaal, and Natal and Cape Province, bazihlanganisa to form one thing against all of us. Despite all those deaths, they decided, if we unify and we unite, we will go far. And from that date until today, because of what? They managed to unite. The ANC was formed in 1912 as a reaction to the Union of South Africa. Because our people said, if these people are uniting against us and they are taking our land, let's unite. That is when they came up with that song, Eti Mzulu, Xhosa, Msuthu, Hlanganani. Because we said, if they can unite, let's also unite. And so the ANC was formed for the return of our land. But Ramaphosa's ANC has deviated from that original mission. So that is what President Zuma is saying. So when he says he's a member of the ANC, he means he's not a member of the ANC of Ramaphosa that is sold out, but a member of the original ANC. And you cannot expect, comrades, think about it. If you joined an organization at the age of 17, you know he had to lie about his age, because his joining age was 18. So what joined at the age of 17, went on to become a soldier of Umkhonto weSizwe. As I've already said, spent 10 years on Robben Island for ANC activities, went into exile, became a leader of the ANC with no comparison. And to see that organization being bought by Rupert and them in 2017 and being turned into a monster by Ramaphosa, you can imagine. That is why at the age of 83, some of us at the age of 83 will be sitting in an old age home. But Msholozi has decided to sacrifice himself for us to be free. And as we enjoy. So, Aksinto Nane, my comrade, when we say happy birthday, 83rd birthday to Msholozi, we must do that without that understanding. Uguti, a person of this age who has done it all, he has been a president of this country. This is a person who has already been a president. So when he wakes up in the morning, it's not for his kundla. It is to free you and me and millions of our people. Now that's what it means to be a revolutionary. A revolutionary is not somebody who's thinking about themselves. Yes, you can have a position. Yes, you must have leaders. But if the first thing you think of in the morning is Uguti, hey, so that then you are in the wrong organization. It means you must not be in Umkhonto weSizwe. And I must leave you with this message, which Ubaba wants everyone to understand. This organization is not the ANC. If we wanted to form the ANC or a branch of the ANC, we would have formed a branch of the ANC. So if you come here with the tendencies of our Gogo, if there is one thing that will not be allowed, comrades, is anybody who wants to turn this organization into the ANC of factions, backstabbing, money-making, corruption. So the message is clear, comrades. Umkombandlela is very clear. If when you came here for Iskunda or for Uruti, Utole counselor or whatever, then I have some advice for you. Uveleje batobotsotsi ungajampisi uvele uhambe kancane. Nathi ngeke sijampise sonke ngathi sikubona. Uhambe ubuyele la uvela khona. La kuMkhonto weSizwe, this is about the people of South Africa. Futhi asiwafuni amagwala la kuMkhonto weSizwe. Asibafuni abantu akuthiwa ngabohlohle sakhe abafuna ukuzodlalana kuphela. Kufuneka amasoldier azowuthatha umkhonto avikele isizwe sase South Africa, avikele isizwe sase Africa esicindezelwe for more than 350 years ngamabhulu. That is what this organization is about. Asizanga ukudlala la. If we don't respect an 83-year-old man who has sacrificed everything for our freedom, Tina, sibesidlala ukuthi hayi lo kuzongena bani kuzongena mina I'm the high commander or small commander. Ayikho leyo nto. We have to make sure that we take power in this country as soon as possible. And the road to power, comrades, is through this province. The road to power, it means we must take a take-win next year and we must take KZN as soon as possible. I was addressing a meeting yesterday and I was saying that, you know, Abelung, when mabefuna ukuzwa kamnandi, they go to Western Cape, ngoba laba bacabanga ukuthi bayithathile Western Cape, but I won't tell you a secret. Msholozi has got a secret weapon for Western Cape, but ningabatsheli. Akungeke kube khona indawo la eSouth Africa kuthiwa indawo yabelungu. It will never happen. But before we take out that plan, we want to turn this province must be the liberated zone of black people. So I just want to see black people I think KZN and just spend the weekend in KZN in our liberated zone. In the way to so that must cut South Africa. We retreat to KZN, so plan a food. And it's all in your hands, comrades. We must take this province as soon as possible. And they know that. That's why Lagum Kondo, my favorite song, Ile Eti, Niyawabona lamasela ayatata zehio. Ayatata zela. Ayatata zela hasena. Niyawabona lamasela ayatata zela. Ayatata zela. Oh, ayatata zela hasena. Manda. Away, two. Manda. Long live Namalala, long live. Long live Namalala, long live.